just whispering in my ear.
Can you cook?
No, I just watched it at home, and
Well, we all kind of huddled up and we said, this is what he does. It's right up his alley. And so I went back there.
She held the check in trembling hands, her eyes locked on the scribbled note that turned her entire world upside down. A simple act, yet it left her sobbing in the middle of the diner floor. The story of a black waitress serving Clint Eastwood only to find a life-altering message on the receipt is not just surprising, it's unforgettable. Let us uncover the shocking truth hidden in those words and how one moment changed everything forever. The stranger who left more than just a tip. The job wasn't glamorous, but it kept her moving. She'd spend hours balancing trays, filling coffee cups, and scribbling orders onto her notepad. Cassie knew the menu like the back of her hand, but it wasn't the food that made her days interesting. It was the people. There were the loud families, the lonely regulars, and the occasional traveler who breezed through town with a story to tell. Each day was the same but different, and that was what made it bearable. That evening, under the salt shaker, she found a note, and it knew her secret. One Thursday afternoon, the diner was unusually quiet. The hum of the air conditioner was louder than the conversation, and Cassie found herself wiping down already clean counters just to keep busy. That's when he walked in. The man had an aura about him, a presence that made people glance twice. He was older, dressed casually, but something about him hinted at importance. Cassie didn't recognize him right away. To her, he was just another customer. He took a seat by the window, sunglasses perched on his nose, and looked at the menu like he had all the time in the world. Cassie grabbed her notepad and headed over. She greeted him with the same warmth she offered everyone, jotting down his order quickly. He ordered a burger, fries, and a black coffee. Simple and straightforward. As she walked away, Cassie felt a strange sense of familiarity, like she'd seen him somewhere before. It wasn't until one of the cooks whispered his name in disbelief that she realized who he was. Clint Eastwood. The Clint Eastwood. She'd grown up watching his movies, her father's favorite being The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But this wasn't a movie set. It was just a small-town diner, and Clint Eastwood was sitting in it waiting for his burger. Cassie kept her cool. She didn't fawn or gush like some of the other staff wanted to. She treated him like she would any other customer. She served his food, refilled his coffee, and made sure everything was to his liking. If he noticed her calm demeanor, he didn't let on. He ate quietly, occasionally glancing out the window as if lost in thought. When he was finished, he waved her over for the check. Cassie printed it out and handed it to him, thanking him for coming in. He gave her a small nod and pulled out his wallet. After he'd paid, he stood up, adjusted his sunglasses, and left without a word. It wasn't until she went to clear the table that she saw it. The note was scribbled on the back of the check. At first, she thought it was just a signature, but as she looked closer, the words became clear. It was a simple message, written in neat, deliberate handwriting. "Thank you for your kindness. You made my day brighter." Beneath it was a tip. Not just a couple of dollars, it was hundreds. Cassie's hands trembled as she counted the bills, disbelief washing over her. She stared at the note, then at the money, her mind racing. In her line of work, tips were appreciated but rarely extravagant. This was different. This was life-changing. The generosity, the thoughtfulness, it hit her in a way she hadn't expected. Tears welled up in her eyes, and before she could stop herself, they spilled over. It wasn't just about the money. It was the acknowledgement, the kindness of a stranger who didn't have to care but did. Cassie wiped her face and tucked the note into her pocket. The rest of her shift passed in a blur, but her heart felt lighter. The small-town diner seemed a little brighter, the repetitive tasks a little less tedious. It wasn't every day someone reminded her that she mattered, that her efforts weren't invisible. And it wasn't just anyone who had done it. It was Clint Eastwood. Word spread quickly through the diner staff. Some of her co-workers were envious, others amazed, but Cassie didn't let their reactions diminish what she felt. To her, it wasn't about the fame of the man who'd left the note. It was about the act itself. It reminded her that even in the most ordinary places, extraordinary things could happen. And in a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving, a little kindness could go a long way. As the days passed, Cassie kept the note in her wallet. It became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even when life felt overwhelming, there were moments of light waiting to surprise her. She didn't tell many people about what had happened, choosing to keep it as a private memory, something to hold on to when things got tough. The diner returned to its usual rhythm. Customers came and went, the coffee kept flowing, and Cassie continued to work her shifts. But something inside her had changed. She started to notice the little things more. A child's laughter, a kind smile from a stranger, the way the sun hit the windows in the late afternoon. Life wasn't perfect, but it was full of moments worth appreciating. Looking back, Cassie realized it wasn't just about the note or the money. It was about being seen. In a world where people often looked past one another, where days blurred together in a haze of routine, someone had taken the time to acknowledge her. That recognition, that simple act of kindness had been enough to remind her of her own worth. Some days start like any other, but one moment can change everything. A quiet stand in a room full of glamour. The room fell silent. The tension was palpable, every eye in the restaurant now focused on the scene. Miguel's bus tub slipped from his hands, crashing to the floor with a loud clatter. Thomas, who had been making his way over, froze mid-step, his face pale. He set his glass down slowly, the movement deliberate and commanding. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. With a brief call, he requested the ownership papers and renovation plans to be brought to him immediately. When he ended the call, he looked back at Rachel, who was now visibly shaken. "You see, Rachel," he began, his voice calm but firm, "I bought this restaurant 6 months ago. I've been sitting at this table every Friday since. Not for the luxury, not for the prestige, but because this place stood for something real. 50 years ago, the Grand Oak was a place where everyone was treated with respect, regardless of who they were or what they wore. That's what I wanted to preserve." As he spoke, Jerry, the restaurant's accountant, arrived with a leather portfolio containing the documents he'd requested. Jerry handed them over with a respectful nod, stepping back to let him continue. Rachel's face had turned pale, the weight of her actions sinking in. He gestured toward Miguel. "This young man recognized me not because of social media or status, but because he watched my films with his family. He understands something you don't. Respect isn't about appearances, it's about how we treat people." Turning back to Rachel, he offered her a choice. "You can leave and find another job where appearances are all that matter, or you can stay and learn what real hospitality means. Miguel will start training as a waiter. If you choose to stay, you'll learn from him and the rest of the staff what it means to truly serve others." Rachel's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "I'd like to stay and learn, sir." He nodded, finishing his whiskey and standing up. "Good choice," he said simply. As he walked out, the room erupted in quiet applause, not for the celebrity in their midst, but for the lesson in humility and respect they'd all just witnessed. In the weeks that followed, the Grand Oak underwent a subtle transformation. Rachel's attitude softened, her eagerness replaced by a genuine desire to connect with guests. She learned to notice the details that mattered, not the designer labels or flashy attitudes, but the small moments of joy and appreciation from every customer. Miguel took his training seriously, moving up from busboy to waiter with ease. His confidence grew not just in his job, but in his ability to make a difference, one guest at a time. The regulars at the Grand Oak noticed the changes too. The older couple who had watched the scene that night became even more frequent visitors, often sharing stories with Miguel about their favorite films. The staff's camaraderie strengthened, their shared respect for the restaurant's core values, creating a bond that extended beyond their shifts. Even the influencers and tech moguls began to appreciate the sincerity of the service, their superficial expectations replaced by a genuine admiration for the warmth of the place. And every Friday, Clint Eastwood could still be found at his corner table, sipping his whiskey and observing the scene. He didn't need grand gestures or loud declarations. His presence alone was a quiet reminder that respect and authenticity would always have a place at the Grand Oak. The restaurant's success wasn't just in its luxury, but in its heart, a legacy of dignity and kindness that Clint had ensured would live on. Picture this: a fancy restaurant, posh vibes everywhere, and a waitress with an attitude so loud it practically echoes off the crystal chandeliers. Now throw Clint Eastwood into the mix. You know, the guy who's all about squinty stares and iconic one-liners. But let's dive deeper, because this isn't just any night. This is the night a clueless server decides to treat Clint like some regular Joe, not realizing he's the man who owns the whole darn place. Let's talk about the food, because let's be real, that's why we're here. Clint teamed up with a chef who knows his stuff, crafting a menu that's all about local, fresh, and ridiculously delicious ingredients. We're talking ribeye steaks that are so tender they practically melt, roasted beet salads that make you forget you're eating vegetables, and desserts that could win awards. The strawberry shortcake? A masterpiece of simplicity and flavor. Every dish tells a story, a nod to the land and the history of the place, but it's not just about the food, it's the people who make the magic happen. Clint's all about fostering a team that's as passionate as he is. He's the kind of guy who'll notice the busboy with a spark in his eye and help him climb the ranks. Case in point, Miguel. This kid started out clearing tables but had big dreams of becoming a chef. Clint saw that fire and made sure Miguel got the training he needed. Fast forward, and Miguel's not just part of the team, he's a rising star in the kitchen. Picture Clint strolling into his own restaurant, casual as ever. He's not one for grand entrances or letting people know he's a big deal. He'd rather sit quietly in a corner observing, soaking it all in. But on this particular night, fate had other plans. Enter the waitress, all attitude and no clue who she's dealing with. She's dismissive, maybe even a little snarky, and completely oblivious that the guy she's brushing off is the owner of the joint. Now, Clint's not the type to throw his weight around. He's got that quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need validation. So, he lets it slide, taking mental notes as the night goes on. It's not about revenge or proving a point, it's about understanding what's happening under the surface. Why is this server acting like this? Is it just a bad day, or is there a bigger issue at play? The restaurant changes and every dish carries a glimpse of something lasting, where every meal tells a story. When the night's over, Clint doesn't storm out or demand to see the manager. Instead, he takes his observations back to the drawing board. Maybe it's time for a staff meeting, a little refresher on what the Grand Oak stands for. It's a place of warmth, connection, and respect, values that Clint holds close to his heart. And if someone on the team isn't living up to that, well, it's an opportunity to make things right. But here's the thing about Clint, he's not just about fixing problems, he's about creating legacies. The Grand Oak isn't just a restaurant, it's a beacon of what's possible when you combine history, heart, and a little Hollywood flair. It's a place where the past meets the present, where every meal tells a story, and where even a less than perfect night can lead to something better. The Grand Oak has this magnetic charm that draws people in, not just for the food, but for the experience. Picture this: families gathering for special occasions, couples enjoying intimate dinners, and friends reconnecting over wine and laughter. It's more than just a restaurant. It's a haven, a space that feels like home no matter who you are. And Clint's fingerprints are all over it, from the ambience to the attention to detail that makes every visit memorable. Let's not forget about the behind-the-scenes magic that keeps the place running like a well-oiled machine. Clint's philosophy is simple: respect the land, honor the community, and never compromise on quality. That's why nearly every ingredient is sourced locally, from the tender steaks to the fresh herbs that garnish the plates. It's not just about supporting local farmers and reducing the carbon footprint, it's about creating a connection between the food on your plate and the land it came from. And then there's the decor. Every inch of the Grand Oak has been thoughtfully designed to blend old-world charm with modern elegance. The original wooden beams have been lovingly restored, antique furnishings add a touch of history, and the lighting creates a warm, inviting glow. It's the kind of place where you can feel the stories in the walls, where every detail whispers of a time when life was simpler, but just as full of meaning. As the years pass, the Grand Oak continues to thrive, its reputation growing as a destination for food lovers and history buffs alike. People come from miles around to experience the magic, drawn by tales of Clint's involvement and the promise of an extraordinary meal. But it's not just about the celebrity factor. At its core, the Grand Oak is about authenticity, about creating moments that matter, and about preserving a legacy that will endure for generations. Even Clint's personal connection to the place remains strong. He's a regular fixture, often seen quietly enjoying a meal in his favorite corner. He's not there to bask in the limelight. He's there to reflect, to observe, and to soak in the atmosphere he's worked so hard to create. For Clint, the Grand Oak is more than just a business venture. It's a labor of love, a tangible expression of his values and his vision. The Grand Oak stands as a shining example of what's possible when passion, purpose, and a deep respect for tradition come together. It's a place where history is celebrated, where community is nurtured, and where every guest is treated like family. Through his involvement, Clint has not only preserved a piece of Cherry Valley's heritage, but has also created a space where the simple joys of good food and good company can be savored and cherished. And there's even more to it. Beyond the day-to-day operations, the restaurant serves as a model for how businesses can integrate sustainability without sacrificing quality or experience. Clint's commitment to reducing waste and sourcing renewable energy is evident in every aspect of the Grand Oak. Solar panels discreetly tucked away power much of the restaurant, and the kitchen's zero-waste initiative ensures that even the smallest scraps find a meaningful purpose. These steps are not just good business practices, they reflect a philosophy rooted in respecting the environment and preserving it for future generations. The community connection is equally powerful. Clint has made sure that the Grand Oak is not just a restaurant, but a gathering place that gives back. Charity dinners, local fundraisers, and workshops with nearby schools have transformed it into more than a dining destination. It's become a hub of activity, fostering a deeper relationship between the restaurant and the people it serves. Local artists showcase their work in rotating exhibits, and musicians often fill the space with live performances that enhance the already rich atmosphere. It's this layered approach that makes the Grand Oak truly exceptional. From the first sip of wine to the last bite of dessert, every experience is meticulously designed to leave a lasting impression. Guests often comment not just on the food, but on the intangible sense of belonging they feel when they walk through the doors. That's the magic of Clint's vision, creating a place where everyone, from the staff to the patrons, feels a part of something bigger. What truly elevates the Grand Oak is the attention paid to the little moments. A guest once recalled how a waiter noticed they were celebrating a special anniversary and discreetly brought out a complimentary dessert with a handwritten note. It's these personalized touches that have transformed the restaurant from a dining spot into a memory-making destination. It's clear Clint's influence extends far beyond the menu. It's woven into the way people are treated and the memories they take home. For those who dine regularly, the Grand Oak is a second home, but for newcomers, it feels like a hidden gem. Stories of encounters with Clint himself have become part of the allure, shared in whispers or proud declarations to friends. Spotting him quietly observing the restaurant's rhythm, sometimes exchanging a few words with the staff, only adds to the magic. It's a reminder that this legendary figure isn't just an icon of the silver screen, but a man with a genuine love for creating something meaningful. Was Rachel's transformation at the Grand Oak a genuine change of heart, or just a survival tactic in a world obsessed with appearances? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, subscribe for more stories.